Hey guys, so today for writing, we're just going to do a real quick practice for writing before we get into our story, which will be next week, Tuesday. Uh, and what I want to practice is something that I think is kind of important within your stories. It's called using dialogue in your story. So what you're going to do right off the bat is you're going to open up this link and you're going to make a copy. So I'm going to file, make a copy, and then you're going to realize that I spelled dialogue wrong. And then you're going to put your name in there as well. So make sure you put name and then dialogue. And at this point, this is now your copy. So I want you to put your name up here so I know whose it is as well. So I'll put Nikki. And there's three rules I want you to remember when you're doing this dialogue practice. Number one, the first rule is putting your punctuation inside the quotation. Remember, we use quotation marks when we show people speaking to one another, and that punctuation will kind of go inside that quotation. We'll look at some examples, and then I'm going to have you practice that as well. The next thing I want you to note is that when someone new is talking, a new paragraph must be created. That doesn't mean every time someone starts speaking, a new paragraph has to be created. It's just when somebody new is talking. So sometimes the person's talking and then there'll be a bit of narration and then the same person will be talking. Well, you don't need a new paragraph there. But if somebody new is talking, then a new paragraph has to be made. So sometimes these paragraphs will be just one or two sentences because they're having a conversation between people. The third rule that I want you to try is mixing up your narration with the speaking parts to create a solid flow within your writing. That means that your entire story isn't just narration. It's not just inside somebody's head. And that means your story is not entirely just speaking. You want to use both of those things. And what I have is an example from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets below. So you can see in the first couple paragraphs, there's narration that kind of tells what's happening within the story, tells what's happening to the characters. They give a little exposition. Raindrops the size of bullets, thunder on the castle windows for days on end. So again, it kind of talks about what's happening in the story. Next paragraph, even aside from the rain, the wind, it hadn't been a happy practice season. Fred and George, who had been spying on the Slytherin team, had seen for themselves the speed of those new Nimbus 2001s. So again, it gives a little exposition as to what's happening in the story. Talks a little bit about I believe it's the Gryffindor and the Slytherin team getting ready for a Quidditch match. Talks a little bit more about that, and then also it goes into dialogue. And notice right off the bat, the dialogue says, "Hello, Nick," and it uses those quotation marks right there. And every time somebody speaks, it also starts off with a capital letter. So, "Hello, Nick," comma, quotation mark. And notice that comma is right inside the quotation. That's what we said in our rule number one, that those commas go inside a quotation mark, said Harry. And now, notice that's a really small paragraph. It's just Harry Potter saying hello to nearly headless Nick, and it goes into Nick then speaking back. "Hello, hello," said nearly headless Nick, starting and looking around. And then it goes into a little bit more narration. It talks about what he was doing, what he's wearing, what he looks like. So that's all part of this. Because Nick is speaking and Harry will start speaking a little later on, that narration goes inside that paragraph with what he's talking about. So again, that dialogue and the narration is kind of intertwined together to kind of create that paragraph. And that's what I want you to do. Again, this is just an example of that, kind of showing this dialogue and the narration kind of mixed together. And that's what you're going to do and kind of practice in this next little part. So down below it says try your own. Please create a part. You don't need to create a whole story, just a small part of a story that kind of shows the narration and the dialogue mixed within it. So down here, you're going to kind of just create, it might be in the middle of the story, it might be the beginning of the story, it might be the end of the story. I don't really care. Just 2, 3, 4 paragraphs that kind of show, number one, do you know how to create proper dialogue and using the correct punctuation, capitalization, commas, quotation marks, all that good stuff. And number two, do you understand how to create new paragraphs when somebody new is speaking? Also intertwining that narration dialogue like we showed above. So that's what I want you to do right here. I want you to kind of create these 2 paragraphs or create a set of paragraphs, maybe not 2, that just kind of talks about part of a story. And if you want to use your story, you can do that. If you want to just talk about this story, Two Kids Going on Adventure, you can do that as well. But I want here to just be an example showing me that you know how to follow those 3 rules. And then once you're done, I want you to share it with me. Go share, and then put N Sharon Brock like so. And you'll see my face appear, and that'll tell you that you shared with the right person. And that's what I want you to get done with today for your writing. Like I said, this is going to be our last step before we can start really going into our adventure stories and making those papers starting next week. If you have any questions, please let me know.